Hi guys, so today is far too warm for doing anything serious, so instead I'm gonna make a video. It's too hot. It's too hot. I'm disappointed in the British weather because it should not be this warm. So some of you might be following Catty-tastic, who very recently did most bought books, which is kind of authors that she has the most books written by on her shelves. I'm going to do a similar thing, but I am only going to do it from this bookshelf and the one in my bedroom because I still live at home and my parents are just as mad about books as I am. So if you can think, as a 17-year-old, I have 2 bookcases full, imagine what their 87 combined years have achieved book-wise, because it's a lot. And some of my books are not on my shelves, they're downstairs, so I might have bought a book but it's with a set that they already owned, so it's downstairs, or I was reading it and I left it downstairs and it's too hot to bother with that. So, shall we get started? First on my list is Meg Cabot. So you probably know her from writing The Princess Diaries. The film is so nowhere near as good as the books. There are 10 books and only 2 films, and the second one doesn't really count. And Michael is supposed to be far more attractive than that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. But she's written a hell of a lot more books than just that. And although I haven't bought anything of hers in a while, I do really love her writing. And I am going to try and buy some of her new stuff because she has written a load of kind of darker fantasy lately, and I want it, so I just... Anyway, so, books of hers that I own. First things first, The Princess Diaries. All 10 of them, but they're not in the same set, and that bugs me, and you don't know how much it bugs me. But, so, The Princess Diaries, Take 2. Third time lucky. Mia goes fourth. Give me 5. Sixational. 7th heaven. After 8. To the 9s. 10 out of 10. Now this does have a special shiny cover. So look. Oh, it's not dropping fast enough. This is the only one that actually looks like a diary. That's The Princess Diaries. And they're fabulous, and I would recommend them to anyone who's kind of a reading age of kind of 13 plus. I tried to read these when I was younger than that, and like 7, and it didn't work so well just because I didn't really know what algebra was and I got really confused. I then retried them when I was 12 and I was like, shit yes, these books are amazing! And the companion novel to the last book, which is called Ransom My Heart, and is written actually by Meg Cabot, but it says that it's written by Princess of Genovia Mia Thermopolis with help from Meg Cabot. But it is an actual novel. I've never actually read it all the way through, like I read bits of it, and it is quite good. It's what you'd expect from a kind of historical romance book, but it's good. Next I have the Mediator series. I don't have book 1 of this, and books 5 and 6 are in a different style, and that also bugs me. But so, book 2 is called High Stakes. Mean Spirits, Young Blood, and Brave Doubts, and Heaven Sent. They're about a girl who can talk to dead people. I then have some standalones. Tommy Sullivan is a freak. Jinx. I also have one of the books that she is kind of an author of with several other people, which is Prom Nights from Hell. She wrote The Exterminator's Daughter, which is actually a really interesting short story. I really liked it. I did like a lot of the ones in this book. I'm not a huge fan of short stories because I always want more than there is, and then I got upset that they haven't continued them on. I then have one of her adult sets, and this isn't the complete set because I don't have kind of the latest 2, I think. But this is the Size Doesn't Matter series. So I have Size 12 is not fat, Size 14 is not fat either, and Size Doesn't Matter. These books are about a girl called Heather Wells, who used to be a pop star. Her record label dumped her, her mum ran away with all of her money, she got fat and doesn't really have a future. Her fiancé broke up with her, and now she's living with her ex-fiancé's brother and trying to get her degree while working in a university. That all sounds terribly kind of, not dull, but not hugely interesting. And then she finds a dead body and that makes everything more interesting. So basically, she's a murder mystery solver. She's a detective, but she's not an official detective. And kind of each chapter is kind of separated by one of her self-written songs. Some of them are ridiculously bad, and some of them are alright. But they're really good books, and I would recommend them, and I need to kind of finish the series because I haven't done that yet. The last 2 books of Meg Cabot's that I own are the Airhead books. I do have the second one, but I can't find it at the minute, so I have the first and the third one here, and I'll tell you what the second one is. Basically, these books are about a girl called M who gets put into the body of superstar Nikki. Like, her brain is put into Nikki's body, and she kind of has to live her life being Nikki. But she doesn't really want to say goodbye to her best friend or to her sister or to her parents. And it's about the struggles that come with that, and it's really interesting. So the first book is called Airhead. The second book, which I don't have, is called Being Nikki. And the third book is called Runaway. And they're just funny, they're really good books, and I would definitely recommend them. So these are all 25 of the Meg Cabot books that I own, and I'm so gonna drop this pile, I can just feel it. This is so not gonna work. 1, see, there's the bottom of the pile. I made it, and now I'm gonna drop them. It's gonna happen. I am wonderful. So the next author, I have 18 of his books, but I have 17 under one of his names and the 18th under a different name. And this is Daniel Handler / Lemony Snicket. Most people will have heard of Lemony Snicket, not so many have heard of Daniel Handler. Daniel Handler is his real name and Lemony Snicket is his pen name. I'm going to start with the Daniel Handler book, which is Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler, with art by Maria Kalman. I finished this book like a week ago and it is honestly so beautiful. Like, the pictures are gorgeous and the storyline is wonderful, and I thought it really encompassed well falling in love for the first time, and it was wonderful. Next book is by Lemony Snicket, although not really. It's his unauthorised autobiography. So it's by Lemony Snicket, but it never says that anywhere in the book. I've tried to read this book like 3 times and I just get so confused because it's just so confusing. Like, it's so confusing. And this is after reading all of the Unfortunate Events books and both of his new books. Like, I've tried, and I'm sure that smarter people than me will have figured out what all of it means, but I haven't yet, and I maybe never will. But I really like it. It's got such a cool kind of, like, when do books ever do that? I love it when books do that. Next, by Lemony Snicket, is his new series, All the Wrong Questions, which is about him as a kid working in VFD when he's about 11 or 12, I think. I've read both of these, and I'm really hoping that the style that they're in is how it continues, because look at this. One of them's much smaller than the other, and I have yet to ever find a tall version of this one or a small version of this one. So I feel like maybe they're all just going to be different sizes, and I could kind of deal with that if it turns out that 3 and 4 are kind of the same height as one of these two, and then I've got an odd one. I'll be quite upset. But this is the first one, Who Could That Be at This Hour? And the second one, When Did You See Her Last? They're both really good and really funny, and despite kind of being an 8 to 12-year-old book range, they're actually really difficult, not to read but just to understand, because there's so many layers of secrecy and complicated stuff going on, and I really enjoyed them. Another book by Lemony Snicket that I haven't actually got with me but I know that I own, so I'm going to include it because I couldn't find it, is Letters to Beatrice. They're communications between Lemony Snicket, letters that were sent kind of 15 years before the start of a series of unfortunate events, and from a younger girl called Beatrice, and they're sent at least 10 years after the end of the 13th book. And they're kind of, they alternate. So one is from Lemony Snicket to older Beatrice, and one is from younger Beatrice to Lemony Snicket, and they alternate back and forth. I tried to read them before I'd finished the series and got really confused. I reread the series and then read that book, and it made a lot more sense, but it has now made me really eager for him to write a continuation of the series of Unfortunate Events books, because I want to know what the fuck is going on. But it's a really pretty book. It's kind of A4 book, which would be fine, except that I have no space for A4 books. So, thanks, Lemony. Last but not least is the actual series of unfortunate events. Why is it such a long series? I'm never going to be able to hold them all up at once. For those of you that haven't read a series of unfortunate events, you might not know what it's about. But here is the beautiful collection. Like, I'm so proud of this collection because they're all in hardback and they're all just gorgeous. Book 1, The Bad Beginning. Book 2, The Reptile Room. Book 3, The Wide Window. Book 4, The Miserable Mill. Book 5, The Austere Academy. Book 6, The Ersatz Elevator. Book 7, The Vile Village. Book 8, The Hostile Hospital. Book 9, The Carnivorous Carnival. Book 10, The Slippery Slope. Book 11, The Grim Grotto. Book 12, The Penultimate Peril. And Book 13, The End. So, these are all of the Lemony Snicket books. There we go. Can't get them all on the screen, it's fine. Anyway, next on my list is PC Cast. I'm not counting Kristen Cast just because she's only written with her mother as far as I'm aware. And I have some PC Cast standalone novels, so I'm including them as well. So let's get started with the standalones and the companion novels. The first book that I have is a novella. It's a House of Night novella. It's called Neferet's Curse. I think I have the other two, but I could not find them, so I'm not counting them on this list. But I do have Neferet's Curse here. Another House of Night companion is the Fledgling Handbook. It's in hardback. It's lovely. It matches all of the books. I really like it. I then have two novels. The first one is Elphamine's Choice, which is one of two Parthenon books that she's written. I think she's only written two, this one and Bridget's Quest. I don't have Bridget's Quest, but I would quite like to read it. I really enjoyed this novel. It's an adult novel rather than a teen book, but it's still really good. The next one I have is Divine by Blood. This is the last in a trilogy of the Divine books, and I don't have the first two, nor have I read them. So I have this one, but I can't read it because I haven't read the first two. But those are the 4 books of hers that aren't part of a series, or that are not part of the House of Night series. I then have the House of Night series, which is this lovely pile here. So I don't have all of the House of Night books because I've been a little bit slow and I can't really remember what happened, so I might marathon them at some point. Book 1, Marked. Book 2, Betrayed. Book 3, Chosen. Book 4, Untamed. Book 5, Haunted. Book 6, Tempted. Book 7, Burned. Book 8, Awakened. Book 9, Destined. And Book 10, Hidden. I don't have the last one that's been recently published, and the 12th one comes out this autumn. So these are all of the PC Cast novels that I own. Aren't they pretty? Next author is Rachel Caine. I don't have several of her books, and I don't have books of her under her other pen names. Rachel Caine isn't her actual name, it's just a pen name. Cannot at this time remember what her real name is. I have 5 of the Weather Wardens books. I have book 1, which is Ill Wind. I then don't have 2 through to 5, but I have book 6, which is Thin Air. Book 7, Gale Force. Book 8, Cape Storm. And book 9, which is Total Eclipse. I also have her Morganville Vampire series. I still don't have all of these, and it is a priority of mine to get all of these and to marathon them again, because they're turning it into a TV show starring Amber Benson, who I really liked in Buffy. Book 1, Glass Houses. Book 2, The Dead Girls Dance. I then don't have books 3 and 4. So book 5, Lord of Misrule. Book 6, Carp Corpus. Book 8, Kiss of Death. Book 10, Bike Club. Book 11, Last Breath. And book 15, Daylighters. So obviously this isn't all of them, because I have 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 15. Which is no sort of an order, and I will get them eventually, but I don't have them all now. These are all of the Rachel Caine books that I own. Next are my Jodi Picoult books. As these are all standalones, it doesn't really matter which order I do them in. Salem Falls, Handle with Care, Vanishing Acts, Second Glance, Picture Perfect, Lone Wolf, Sing You Home, The Pact, Harvesting the Heart, The Storyteller, House Rules, possibly my favourite book of hers, The 10th Circle, and Between the Lines, which she co-wrote with her eldest daughter. These are all of the Jodi Picoult books that I own. The next author has possibly the smallest pile despite having more books than probably half of the people on this list, and it's Roald Dahl. If you haven't heard of Roald Dahl, I would hugely recommend him. He is a wonderful children's author, and I could never get tired of reading his books. He's also written a couple of books for adults, 2 that are an autobiography of his life, a couple that are fictional stories, and a couple that are short stories that are really, really scary. So let's get started. Danny Champion of the World, James and the Giant Peach, The Witches, George's Marvellous Medicine, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Magic Finger, The Twits, SEO Trot, The BFG, The Collected Short Stories of Roald Dahl, The Complete Adventures of Charlie and Mr. Willy Wonka. And lastly, a book that isn't actually written by him, but I count it in my pile because obviously with him being dead, he's not going to write any more books. And this book is all of his works. It's called Dears for Dahl, and it's basically an encyclopedia of words about him, his life and his works. These are all of the Roald Dahl books that I own. Next is an author that I've already done 2 videos about, and that's Cassandra Clare. She's most famous for writing the Shadowhunter Chronicles, but she's also about to start writing a new 8 to 10 age series called The Iron Trials. The first 3 books of hers that I own are the Infernal Devices series. They look like this. First one is The Clockwork Angel. Book 2 is The Clockwork Prince. Book 3 is Clockwork Princess. They look like that. Her other main series that has already been published are called The Mortal Instrument, and they're a 6-book series that were originally going to be a trilogy, but she then realised that actually she had far more story to tell than could fit into 3 books. The first book, City of Bones. Book 2, City of Ashes. Book 3, City of Glass. Book 4, City of Fallen Angels. Book 5, City of Lost Souls. And Book 6, City of Heavenly Fire. The last book of Cassandra Clare's isn't actually a novel, but is a companion book to all of her Shadowhunter Chronicles, and it's the Codex. These are all of the Cassandra Clare books that I own. Next is an author that, although I have 9 of her books, I haven't actually finished the series, and I'm not entirely sure if I intend to. I liked the first couple of books, but the further I read, the more tired I got by the characters and the more frustrated I became with the storyline. That said, they are a pretty easy read, so it might be that one summer when I'm really bored, I'll just marathon all of the series now that it's over. This author is Louise Renneson, and the first book in the series is called Angus, Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging. The second book is It's Okay, I'm Wearing Really Big Knickers. Book 3, Knocked Out by My Nunga Nungas. Book 4, Dancing in My Nudie Pants. Book 5, And That's When It Fell Off My Hand. Book 6, And Then He Ate My Boy in Trances. Book 7, Startled by His Furry Shorts. Book 8, Love is a Many-Trousered Thing. And Book 9, Stop in the Name of Pants. There are more books in this series, but like I said, I kind of stopped reading them and therefore I don't own all of them. But it might be that I decide to marathon, in which case I will get the rest of the books. Here are the 9 Louise Renneson books that I own. Only 2 more to go, and the next author that I have is incredibly famous for his trilogy. Now, although I own that as one big book, it's not on either of my 2 bookcases, so I'm not counting it in this. As a family, I think we own like 3 copies of that trilogy, so I could count it, but I'm not going to. And that author is Philip Pullman. So the first book that I have by him is called Once Upon a Time in the North, and this is a companion novel to his Dark Materials trilogy, and it kind of describes the world a bit more. There's another companion novel that my dad owns called Lyra's Oxford, which talks more about her world, and this just talks a lot about things that aren't included in the trilogy but that people might find interesting. The next 8 books are actually only 4 books, but I happen to have 2 copies of them. So I'm going to show you the ones that are different, but most of them are exactly the same. So this is the... I don't know if they have a series name. Okay. I call them the Ruby and the Smoke series. I feel like they probably do have a proper series name. So the first book is called The Ruby and the Smoke. The second book is The Shadow in the North. The third book is The Tiger in the Well. And the fourth book is called The Tin Prince. Now these 4 copies of these books match, and they were a present for me. I do, however, have the same 4 books again. The first one looks exactly the same because it's a copy that my mum and dad had from when they were younger. But I then have the next 3 in this really gorgeous kind of steampunk style, but I don't have the first one. So it might be that I need to buy the first one of this style because I really like them to match. But it means that I do have a spare copy of The Ruby and the Smoke for no reason. These are all of the books by Philip Pullman that I own. Last but not least, I have an author who I own 8 of his books. Well, technically I only own 6 and I borrowed 2 from a friend, but I'm going to include those 2 in this video. This is the last one of my top 10. Obviously there are other authors of which I have 6 or 7 of their books, but because I'm only doing the top 10, these are all the ones you're going to get. The last and final author is Michael Grant, who is most famous for his Gone series. So the first book that I have by him is Gone. Book 2 is Hunger, both of which I borrowed from a friend, but I'm counting them. Book 3 is Lies. Book 4 is Plague. Book 5 is Fear. And book 6 is Light. Now I really enjoyed these books, but they are definitely not for young readers. There isn't anything massively sexual, but they are quite haunting, and the amount of violence and disturbing death is quite intense. I then have 2 of his new books, neither of which I've read, but they are both on my TBR list. Book 1 is Berserk, and book 2 is Berserk Reloaded. There is a 3rd book in this trilogy, but I don't have it, and he has also written a book called Adam and Eve, which I really want to read. These are all of my Michael Grant books. That's it for today's video. Tell me if you've read any of these books. Tell me who your top 10 most bought authors are. Like this video if you want to hear more about the books that I own. Subscribe to the channel, and feel free to leave me a comment or talk to me through Tumblr, Twitter or Facebook. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye! I'm just surrounded by piles of books. Ridiculously hot here, like, this is England. Should not be this warm. Very disappointed in you weather. Like, it's not even sunny here. God knows where this good lighting's coming from, because there's no sun. But it's just so Now is not the time for High School Musical 3. I'm never going to be able to fit the cover thing back on now. No! It's called The Tin Prince. No, that's the Ruby and Smoke. This is more complicated than I thought it was going to be. It's too hot. I ain't got time. I mean, I've got the time. I haven't got anything to do today.